Welcome to a recovery workout. We're going to be focusing here on stretches for the hips and low back. So we'll start off seated on a chair, seated on the couch, whatever works for you. Sit up really, really tall and bring your left hand to the outside of your right knee. Again, sit up as tall as you can and then gently twist and look over your right shoulder. We want the pelvis and the low back to stay level and facing forward. The rotation will be happening through the thoracic spine. You might feel your rib cage being the part that rotates. And then switching to the other side, take your right hand to the outside of your left leg and look over your left shoulder. Inhale to sit up tall. Exhale, maybe rotate just a little bit further. From there, if you have a cushion or a towel or something to put down onto the floor, it can be a little bit more comfortable. We're going to move into the couch stretch. So with your foot on the couch or the chair behind you, with your knee resting on the pillow, set your front foot at a 90-degree angle so the knee is stacked right over top of the ankle. And more so than how far forward you lean, what you want to do is tuck the tailbone and try to bring the pelvis into a nice neutral position. So when you do that, you'll notice you feel a stretch in the front of the hip and at the top of the quad almost right away. If you still have room and you want a little bit more sensation, gently shift the hips forward until you get the amount of stretch that you want. But be really mindful about keeping a neutral and long lower back so that we're not arching the back. As you settle into the sensation of the stretch, remember to use your breathing. So inhale to connect with length. Exhale to relax a little bit into the stretch. Switching over to the other side. If you find that you have any discomfort in your knee, you can always trade this stretch and just do a standing quad stretch. So holding on to the side of the chair or the couch for balance and just pulling the leg up behind you. But if you feel comfortable in this one, the sort of added bonus is that by grounding that back knee, you might find that you have a little bit more stability. And when we have a little bit more stability, sometimes we can find a little bit more range of motion. But focus on success here being with a stretch sensation around maybe 4 or 5 out of 10, and allow your body to relax into the stretch. Now we'll look at a seated hamstring stretch. So sitting on the edge of the chair or the couch, extend your left leg all the way forward. Keep a long spine, keep a tall spine. So when you reach forward, if you touch your knee or your shin or your foot, the goal is actually to have as much length in the low back as possible. So I'd rather keep my chest lifted and my head lifted a little bit, prioritizing the length of the spine versus attempting to put my nose down on my knee. Gently stretch to the other side. You'll notice if you pull your toe up towards the ceiling in that right foot that you'll get more of a stretch sensation, and you might even feel it in your calf, or you might feel it in your hamstring. There's a lot of length on the back line of the leg, and you'll feel it sort of where you need it the most. So on your inhale, really prioritize the length of your spine. And then on the exhale, hinge maybe just a little bit further as you feel the muscles start to relax. From here, let's try a seated inner thigh stretch. So take a comfortably wide position. You want your knees stacked directly over top of your feet. And again, with sitting nice and tall and then hinging forward so the low back stays nice and long. You can gently push into your knees with your elbows. That'll open up the inner thighs a little bit more. And balance out between how far you hinge and how wide your feet are, but the goal would be that the knees stay stacked over the ankles so that the hip joint itself can open up a little bit in this stretch. Really try to use your exhales to deepen the stretch, even just a few millimeters at a time. From there, let's come down onto the floor and we'll do a stretch for the outside of the hip. So if you set up the front leg at 90 degrees and then the back leg at 90 degrees as well, again, sit up really tall before you hinge, tipping down into the stretch where you feel the sensation on the outside of that front leg. I recommend dorsiflexing the front foot, so pull your toes up towards your kneecaps. That'll help keep the knee position a lot stronger, and that's safer for the knee. That also helps increase a little bit of the sensation in the stretch in the hip. So use your hands to pull your chest forward. Try to keep your spine long. If you want to increase the sensation, instead of taking your nose down lower towards the ground, instead think about shifting your torso so that the middle of your chest comes down towards your shin or even your foot. Whereas if you're starting out and you're feeling a little bit stiffer, you want to bring the center of your chest down over that front knee. So the knee side is easier, and if you move over towards your foot, the bottom of your foot, you'll notice that the stretch gets a lot more intense. So keep breathing, use the exhale to relax, and even check in with your jaw. See if you can relax your jaw a little bit. Check in with your shoulders, maybe slide your shoulders down away from your ears a little bit, and then extend the spine a little bit longer through the crown of the head to finish the stretch. Now, for another inner thigh stretch, this time the legs are straight, so it stretches that group of muscles a little bit differently. If you're very stiff, bend your knees a lot, so you don't have to have straight legs in this position. You can bend your knees. And again, if we can find a little bit more length in the back, that can be really helpful. So allow yourself to find the stretch sensation. Try to keep some length in the spine, but you might come to a point in the stretch where you want to relax a little bit more, in which case you might drop your elbows down onto the floor. So your back will round a little bit, but keep trying to reach the chest forward so that we have length in the low back, even if there's a little bit of rounding in the upper back. So breathing nice and steady. Even though we're holding our stretches, we want to keep our breath moving. And that exhale really helps the body relax. It allows you to sort of breathe through the mild discomfort of the stretch if you're feeling that. And your breath relaxing will lead the body to relax. So walking your hands back from there, we'll take it into a one-leg hamstring stretch. So tucking the left foot into your inner thigh, extend the right leg. And again, think more about that long spine. So you might start off with your hands beside your knees. You might be able to slide down to beside your shins. And if that feels really comfortable, you might be able to reach for the bottom of your foot. Dorsiflexing, pulling your toes towards your knees, will add a little bit more intensity. And maybe even gently think about pressing the back of the knee down towards the floor. From there, we'll take it into our side stretch, and this one's really good for the quadratus lumborum, which is above the hip on the back side of the body. Sliding the right arm along the right leg, reach the left arm up and overhead, and you may have room to rotate your left armpit up towards the ceiling a little bit to increase the stretch in your side. Switching over on to the other side now. Extend your left leg, tuck your right foot in beside your groin, and turn your torso so that it's right over top of that extended leg. And again, start to lengthen your spine and reach to wherever's comfortable. So whether that's beside your knees, sliding down to the shins, or even grabbing onto your foot, we don't want to lose the sense of length. My spine's rounded a little bit, but I'm still trying to breathe in and extend the chest forward. Exhale and relax into some length. And I'm imagining the back of my knee slowly dropping down towards the floor. Your breath will lead you into more range of motion, better than sort of trying to muscle into it. So where you feel discomfort, try to breathe into that space and allow the exhale to sort of drain away some of that tension or that stiffness or that discomfort. At the same time, if you feel the wrong kind of sensation, if it's joint sensation or if it's a little bit painful, you can always back off to a more comfortable position and work in. So as much as we look symmetrical when we stretch, we often find one side tighter than the other. From here, we're going to come into a little bit of a dynamic pattern, and this is a reach and rotate. So you want to take your left leg behind you, kind of tuck the back foot onto the ground so that you've got a little bit of a quad stretch. Bring that right foot in front of the left knee to kind of help it stay in that position. And then your bottom elbow, you want to set up really strong. Think about doing a side plank. So the whole time I'm doing these little torso rotations, I'm pushing the floor away and I'm trying to stay strong and tall and stable through that bottom shoulder. So then inhale and open up. Exhale to rotate. And after you've done maybe 3 to 5 rotations, just rotate down and hold. So keep thinking about the length from tail to crown. Push the floor away with that bottom arm, forearm. And switch over to the other side when you're ready. So top foot tucks back to put ourselves into a bit of a quad stretch. Bottom foot in front of that knee to help it stay there. Bottom arm really strong into the ground, pushing the floor away so that you have a stable shoulder. Inhale to open. Exhale to rotate. And this is sort of like grooving the pattern. So each time you exhale, you might find you have a little bit more room to turn the torso down towards the floor. Just be mindful that this is a stretch sensation and not pinching or any pain in the hips or back. So stay long and just gently ease into that range. When you go to hold, you don't have to have both elbows on the floor. You could just reach your arm out to wherever you can reach on the floor for a little bit of support, for a little bit of stability in the hold. So again, inhale, extend through the crown of your head. Exhale, imagine the ribs turning just a little bit more down towards the floor. Nice, good stuff. Coming back into a different way of stretching the inner thighs here. So sitting up nice and tall. Now, if you don't want to have your heels in this close, you can have them further away, creating more of a diamond shape. If it's comfortable, grab onto the ankles. Use that to sit up nice and tall. And if you can reach, you can push the elbows down into the knees. If you can't reach, that's okay. Keep your chest up nice and tall. Just tip forward a little bit until you get the amount of stretch that you want. We actually have several different adductor muscles. And so by stretching them in these different ways, we're stretching based on how they connect and how they're lined up on the leg. So from here, coming into our sideline quad stretch, and I like having lots of connection with the floor. So my bottom leg slightly bent helps me keep my balance. My arm extended allows me somewhere to rest my head. And then in addition to that top leg getting a quad stretch, my top shoulder, if I pull it back, I'm sort of opening up the chest and shoulder a little bit as well. Now, if you feel a lot of sensation, just stay with the sideline quad stretch. But if you have room, if you feel really comfortable, you can bring your top foot on top of the top knee. And what that'll do is allow you to use that foot to gently draw the knee down towards the floor just a little bit, adding a stretch to the TFL, which would be the muscle at the top of the hip that connects to the IT band running down the side of your leg. We'll switch over to the other side and try the same thing again. So start off with the sideline quad stretch first. Again, even though we look symmetrical, often one leg or one hip is tighter than the other. So feel out the quad stretch first. And then if you have room, you can bring that bottom foot over. Keep drawing your back leg back. So if you can, think about drawing the knee back behind the front line of the body, and that'll increase the stretch in the quad. Using the top foot gently to draw the knee down will be what increases the stretch through the TFL. Another way to stretch the hamstrings now by bringing both feet together. And I really like to start this one with my hands in behind me to push my chest high before I hinge. If that feels comfortable and then you want to reach forward, you can bring your hands to your knees, your shins, or maybe even to the soles of your feet. But keep focusing on that length in the back. So inhale to lift the chest, exhale to hinge. And when you hinge, you can even think about pulling your legs underneath you a little bit more. So as you sort of pull the hips back and extend the chest forward, you're going to be promoting lots of length through the whole back line of the body, which is the bottom of your feet, your calves, your hamstrings, and the muscles that run all the way up your back. Now, this one's my favorite stretch for inner thighs, but for a lot of people, this one can be really intense. So you may want to put a pillow or a towel underneath the knees, just because the inside of your knee is quite bony, and that's the part of the body that's touching the floor. Now, we want to prioritize length in the spine for this one. So you set your knees a comfortable distance apart. If you're finding that you're really stiff, you can bring your toes to touch together behind you. If you're a little bit more flexible, you can have the knees at a 90 degrees with the heels lined up behind the knees. When you come down to your forearms, think about a plank position. So keep your spine in a nice neutral line, and then even push the floor away so that your upper back is nice and strong. And then draw your head back so that your neck is in line with the rest of your spine. Now we stay here for a little bit longer. There's lots of connective tissue up in the top of the inner thigh, and it just takes longer to get some relaxation and some release into those tissues. So I encourage you to try to find a comfortable position where you can stay for a little bit, but if at any time you find that you're uncomfortable, you can slowly come out and take a bit of a rest. If you still feel good and you want to add a little bit of a dynamic mobilization, I like doing this one where I just step one hand to the side and sort of use that to rotate the chest open. But again, keep in mind the length of the spine. So we don't want to rotate around a spine that has a curvature in it. So go long from tail to crown, and then maybe just add a little bit of that shoulder rotation or that shoulder check. What that does is helps put a little bit more space in the hips, and then if you can, we want to stay in that frog pose even a little bit longer. So inhale, lengthen the spine. Exhale, just imagine the knees sliding a little further apart. And if you want to, you can even try shifting your body forward and back just a little bit, maybe an inch or two forward and an inch or two back. Think about it like gently turning the femur in the hip socket. So because hips are supposed to be a mobile joint, we want to stretch them in different ways, and we want to mobilize them in different ways. Now come out really gently because we spent a little bit of extra time there. So shift your hips forward first, then bring your hands down, then step your knees in. And we'll finish with a couple of lying poses here. So putting your heel up on the couch or the chair so that your knee is at a 90-degree angle. Cross your right foot over your left knee. And the distance that your hips are away from the chair will determine the stretch. So if you find this really tight, you can slide your body back away from the chair a little bit. And if you find that you want more sensation, then you can move your hips closer to the chair. Now, dorsiflex that right foot to keep the right knee safe. And then try to roll your tailbone down towards the ground so that we're maintaining length in the lower back. If you still want more, take your right hand and gently push your right knee towards the couch or the chair, and you'll feel a little bit more of a stretch in the outside of that right hip. Relax your shoulders though. Relax your jaw. And really let your body take support in the floor underneath you. Switching now to the other side. Remember, you might have more stiffness on one side than the other, so you can always push back away from the couch or the chair so that there's less stretch sensation. This time we're stretching out the outside of the left hip. So gently dorsiflex that left foot to protect the knee, and then roll the tailbone down to the floor just a little bit more. Imagine that lower back covering the floor even a little bit more. Relax your shoulders. And if you want to add, you can push your left hand into your left knee, sending the knee towards the couch or the chair, and that'll give you even a little bit more opening in that external rotation of the hip. Now, bringing the feet down onto the ground, bring your left foot over your right knee, and then slowly drop both legs down towards the right. You don't have to go all the way down to the floor. You can stop at any point. You want to make sure that your hips and low back are still comfortable. But wherever it is you turn to, you should feel the stretch shift into the side of the glutes. So I really like this one for stretching the glute med. And especially if I've done a lot of glute work or if I've done a lower body dominant day, this is probably my favorite post-workout stretch. If you have room for a little bit more, use your right hand to gently pull your left knee down towards your right shoulder. So it's just changing the angle that we're stretching the glute, and you might feel it get a little bit deeper in towards that hip socket. Slowly unwinding, and we'll set it up on the other side. So cross your right foot over your left knee. Slowly drop both legs down towards the left. You can stop at any point. If you make it all the way down to the floor and you still don't feel enough of a stretch, use your left hand to pull your right foot further up your thigh. Bring it closer towards your hip. And once you've found the stretch you want, take the next couple of breaths to try to relax the right hip down towards the floor. It won't necessarily get there. But if you breathe some length into the right side of the body and just breathe the right side of the pelvis away from your armpit, you'll be getting even more of a stretch. From there, if you want to, grab your left hand, bring the right knee a little closer towards your left armpit, and go for that 4 or 5 out of 10 stretch sensation, breathing into the hip as you go. Slowly let go of the foot and unwind from there. It might be a great idea to do a little bit of breathing just while you're lying there on the floor to close this one out.